everyone, and welcome. I'm Julia Benishu, and I'm the Product Marketing Manager here at Agora, and I'm thrilled to be your host for today's session on how top investor relations teams are scaling smarter. And so at Agora, we work really closely with leading investment firms every single day, and we're seeing a clear trend. And you're probably seeing the same thing. And that is that LP expectations are rising significantly, and investor relations teams are under more pressure than ever to do more with less. And so in today's webinar, it's going to be all about how the most effective teams are meeting that challenge. So scaling their operations, their communications, and reporting without really losing that high touch, personalized investor experience that builds long term trust and drives growth. And so I'm really happy to say that I'm joined today by three incredible investor relations experts that I've had the privilege of working with, who are going to be leading breakout rooms later in the session. And that's where they're going to dig really into the specific parts of your investor relations operations that can benefit from Agora. So before we jump in, just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded, and you're going to get an email in a few days to download the replay. And second, as I mentioned, we're going to close with those breakout rooms, so just make sure to stick around and bring your questions. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to start by giving you a bit of an intro to Agora, just so you understand what it is that we do. And then I'm going to dive into some of the challenges that you're probably facing when it comes to managing your investors day to day. And then I'll give you a high level overview of what Agora's solution is. And then we'll dive into those breakout rooms led by our experts, and we'll leave some time for some Q&A. And so, as I've mentioned, we've also got our in-house experts, Chen, Lauren, and Miles with us today, and they've worked with hundreds of investor relations teams, and you're going to hear from them in the breakout rooms later, where they're going to talk through real use cases and answer your questions. Okay, so what is Agora? Essentially, Agora is a comprehensive investment management solution for real estate firms to handle their entire back office while still providing the best-in-class experience. And ultimately, our solution allows firms to focus on what matters the most, which is their growth. And so, what does growth actually look like for investor relations teams using Agora? So, it starts with working more efficiently behind the scenes. So, streamlining all your day to day processes that typically slows teams down. And when you operate more efficiently, you can show up more professionally for your investors, which is ultimately going to lead to stronger relationships and long term growth. Because in today's market, seamless operations and investor satisfaction is essential for your success. So, what are some of the obstacles you might be facing that makes achieving that difficult? The way I see it, that there are three main challenges. Number one is fragmented processes. A lot of teams are juggling separate tools for their fundraising, for their reporting, and communication, and none of them actually talk to each other. So, even for something as simple as updating an investor's contact information, it turns into a game of copy and paste across three different systems, and it honestly just wastes your time. Second challenge is time consuming manual workflows. I've personally talked to many teams that have used to spend 3+ hours manually preparing each distribution notice. So, copying data from Excel into Word, then into PDFs, and then emailing each one by one to each investor. And that really adds up. And third is ineffective investor engagement. We all know that one investor who's constantly emailing. So, can I get my Q1 report again? Or what's my ownership in this deal? And when's my next distribution? These are the kinds of questions that usually come up from a lack of transparency. And when that happens, your team is stuck in reactive mode instead of focusing on high value work. Let's use the fundraising and onboarding process as an example. You probably know these steps well, the one that you're seeing on the screen, but many are still done super manually. So, reaching out to investors, following up, and collecting those signatures, it all takes time and really slows things down. And so, what did we do at Agora? We took that fragmented manual process and we streamlined the entire thing into one solution. So, from initial outreach all the way to actually collecting those funds. And so, why am I showing you this? Because streamlining your fundraising isn't just about saving your team time, even though that is a major one. It's really about giving your investors a smoother, more professional experience, because that's what sets you apart. And in the end, it's those investor relationships that matter the most. And that's exactly why everything we build at Agora is designed to help investor relations teams work more efficiently and deliver the best investor experience. And it all comes down to four core ways we simplify investor management. First, we help you raise capital. So by making the fundraising and onboarding process simple and seamless. Second, we make sure your investors have the best in class experience. Third, we give you centralized access to your investors' data. And finally, we simplify all ongoing reporting. So no more digging through spreadsheets and trying to find all of your PDFs. And to do that, we've developed four core product modules that work together to simplify your day to day and make it easier to scale without losing that personal touch that your investors are really expecting. So, the first one is the fundraising and onboarding module, which is designed to make the entire fundraising process simpler and more seamless for both you, but most importantly, your investors. And then we have a modern and intuitive investor portal, which really provides your investors the transparency that they need and realistically that they expect. Then there's our investor CRM, which is designed to help you stay on top of every part of your investor relationships all in one place. And lastly, it's our distribution process, which really unifies the entire process from calculation to reporting and actually executing those payments. Okay, so now you're going to get a closer look at these tools through live demos from our speakers, showing how real investor relations teams are using these on their day to day. And as for the breakout room topics, Fen on our left will dive into how teams are scaling fundraising and onboarding. Lauren's going to cover investor management through our CRM and portal, and Miles is going to be unifying the distribution and reporting process from A to Z.
So, hi everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Chen. I'm the solution engineer here at Agora. Basically, this means that I'm part of the product team. I go on calls, try to see how I can fit our product to your use case in the best possible way. And actually, before this role, I was an investor relations myself in a large GP. I dealt with a lot of institutionals, scale of my business, basically having the ability to fundraise and onboard investor in in large scale and capacity. That was my main job. I utilized the Agora platform as a client myself. So that's how I got to know it pretty well, and this is how I have the experience with it. I actually wanted to start off today, top of the funnel regarding to fundraising, right from the beginning, how a prospective investor of yours can actually go to your website, kind of like scroll through, see an opportunity that might interest him, and how he goes through that funnel up until subscription documents, signatures, and how you manage everything in the back end. So I'm going to start off sharing my screen. This is Rockview. Rockview is the GP, so it's you. In this case, I have my own website, updates, whatever you are familiar with in your own marketing and your own personal website. And now that investors have logged in this website, I want them to have the ability to explore the new opportunities, so the investments that they have not yet invested in. So this is really top of the funnel focus. Click on explore opportunities. And this landing page that you're seeing right now is actually Agora. So you have the ability to create separate landing pages for all types of opportunities that you have for each and every investment. It can be a deal by deal, it could be a fund, but it really allows you to customize and set it up and actually embed that landing page within your website. So how does that actually look like? If I'm a prospective lead or a prospective investor, I'm going to click in whichever opportunity I like the most, I'm interested in, right? I scroll down, and this is actually a public landing page. So this information, if you're doing 506B and you're limited in the information that you need to actually share with investors, then you have full flexibility into what information within the data room you want to share in that public landing page of yours. Once I've finished scrolling, I reserve my interest in this inbound lead form. This is completely customizable. And if you want to collect accreditation, you can collect it here as well. And again, you can even change kind of like the wording of each item within this inbound lead form. After I reserved my interests, in the back end, you as the GP, as the investor relations team, would promote that lead to a prospect. And now he will actually get credentials to what we call the investor portal and the full data room. So he will get credentials to, the full data room that you set up, which might include more metrics, right? It might include videos, it might include more documents that you decided to share. So whether that's legal documents like your PPM or your operating agreement, you can share that as well. And of course, it's not something that you would want to share publicly. So we actually give you that ability to decide what you want them to see in that first phase. And then in the second phase, once you kind of like agree to promote them as a prospect. And it's worth mentioning that we have for 506Cs, we have the ability to auto promote if you don't want to have to deal with that. So after I kind of viewed everything, I see the address, I see that I want to invest in, I see the kind of like whether it's a deal or a fund, I click on invest now. And here I have my existing information if I'm a recurring investor, or if I'm a new one, I'm going to hit on create new. And I go through this kind of like subscription flow. This subscription flow is completely customizable. You get to decide these steps on the side if you want to add or redact in regards to each step. It really depends on how you do things in your process today. So basically, I choose my investing entity. Today, I'm going to choose Ron Swanson as an individual, but it might not be the case, right? They might be investing through their RIA or their trust. In that case, they have the ability to put in their profile, their investing entity in Agora. I'm going to click on next. Here, I'm going to insert my distribution wiring information. We have full integration with Plaid. Plaid is an internal verification tool, so you have the ability to give your investors the option to integrate their bank account through Plaid, and it verifies their bank account, which eliminates manual error, which we know that can sometimes be the case with our investors. Click on it, hit on next. Put in the investment amount. You can decide a minimum and maximum amount. It's up to you. You define that in the back end. Upload documents. So here, if there are any additional documents that you would like them to add, so whether it's a W-9, maybe it's an address confirmation, or for entities, a registration confirmation, right? Then you can add them here. And based on the profile type, the information that they need to put in or the additional documents that they need to put in will pop here. Click on next. Here, if your legal advisors want you to add some sort of acknowledgements or disclaimers, here's where you can put it. And click on next. It asks me to verify my profile information because there's already existing information that has been pulled within the CRM. So up until now, I filled all this information and I've hit the final step, which is actually signing the subscription document. What Agora did is she took this route of basically creating what we call the SMART questionnaire. Now, we know that subscription document is a lengthy legal document. Mine personally was 80 pages long. Investors hate actually going through it. They hate understanding it. So we created what we call the SMART questionnaire. So all the information that I fill now, the dry kind of information, is already being automatically pulled into the PDF. But we went even a step overboard. And what we did is, so we created basically an AI builder that reads through your documents and creates a great interface for your investors to actually see and answer only the questions that they need to answer based on their profile type. So this is how it basically looks like. Now, because I've already put in all that information in the subscription flow, all I have left are the actual questions that might not be stored within a CRM, right? So if it's a risk questionnaire, credit investor questionnaires, right? I can go ahead. I have this great interface that you can actually customize the wording itself. So if you want to add any additional instructions for your investors to be able to actually answer that themselves, right? That's our main goal at Agora, is creating this flow where investors can go ahead and do it by themselves without needing to go on a call with the investor relations our hope is that we can create this tool that will allow you guys to focus on other things while the investors have this easy kind of like flow. They do it really quickly, and it's not a hassle for them to sign the subscription document. Once everything is filled out, we know that for legal purposes, all the information still needs to be in the original document, right? It's not enough for you to have, you know, an empty kind of like subscription and then the information that they filled out in another appendix. We know that you basically want them to sign the original documents. It's a legal requirement that we've heard from a lot of legal advisors from our clients. So what the SMART questionnaire does is it takes the information from the subscription flow and from the SMART questionnaire itself, and it embeds it in the original documents. Basically, the AI builder, when you set up the template, it takes the actual information, so for each item, and it puts it in the correct place in the original document. So for instance, we see the amount and the profile name, but not only that, I can actually go ahead and view the questions that I put in the SMART questionnaire. And all is left for me is to go ahead and sign. And now I can see my funding instructions. And of course, we have ACH contribution. So if at this step, your investors need to actually contribute the funds, they can have here another kind of like link or step for actually contributing through the system itself. Now, after that, I want to kind of like close the loop, show you guys how you manage it through the back end. So up until now, we went through the investor journey, right? We have seen how Agora tools can basically help the investors go through the subscription document a lot faster without needing you guys to be with them with the process. Now we're gonna go and step to the admin control panel. Basically, the side of things where you guys live and play. This is where you manage everything. Everything that you do here can be reflected over to the investor portal. So you can see the Agora logo right over here. This is how you know that you're in the ACP. We are going to go ahead to investments, to offerings. So we've seen the offering in the front end, right? We saw the data room that we customized, shared photos, shared the documents and files, and saw kind of like the subscription flow. This is how you set it up and customize. So in Agora, we have entities. Entities can be, you know, your investments, right? Whether it's an asset or an SPV, it will be logged in Agora as an entity. And then we have our offerings. So our offerings is both the data room and the pipeline within Agora. This is how you manage your investor fundraising and onboarding. You can create multiple offerings and attach it to the same entity, which give you great flexibility if you have different types of investors that you would like to share different types of information. You're not bound to one offering per one entity. So you can create multiple data rooms and basically put in different files or different documents within that offering. So for example, I was now in 545. When I click into an offering, right, I see right away this kind of like summary of my reservation, my prospect, my soft commitments, and my raised, right? So reservations are what I showed you in the very beginning, top of the funnel. If someone interested and you want to, basically he logged in his interest, his information, and you want to promote them as a lead, this is how you do it, promote lead to a prospect. Now that you've gained access to the data room, he is listed here as a prospective investor. So soft committed, someone, you know, you talked to said, you know, I'm good for 250 or I'm good for 1 million, you want to log it in. This is basically where you would do that in your soft committed. And of course, the raised. The raised is the amount that you have a subscription signed for. So this gives you good visibility when you actually fundraise for a specific fund or deal. Here you have your, I would say your pipeline steps, right? You have all of your prospect, and then you have the hasn't started, countersigned, or completed, right? So of course, when you set up the template, when you set up the subscription document, you have your investor side, but you also have the other side, the counter signatures. So you can have up to 5 countersigners. And basically, once someone is countersigned, you can see it right over here. Once you click in to an actual prospect, you have full visibility into that kind of like prospect page, right? So you have the profile. So Ron Swanson decided to invest through his individual. That's everything that we did up until now, all of the subscription flow. These are the steps, and this is how you have visibility of it and the back end. But not just that. So we have here the different filters and items that are customizable. So you can actually go ahead to the settings and change it. So if you want to add, connected or communication preferences, maybe you want investment preferences up here as well. You can basically create whatever you need. Maybe it's to track AML, right? Every filter that you would want, you can add here to the prospect page. But not only that, we understood that we need to give you full visibility into the subscription document that the investor actually does in his flow, right? Because if the goal is that he fills it out, you need to review it. So over here, we have full visibility of the SMART questionnaire in the back end. So you can see that all of the questions that I've actually answered as the investor, I can see them in the back end when I log in as the GP. But what happens if you are reviewing his subscription document and you find, like, a lot of the times an error that the investor filled out? So instead of you sending him traditionally, like you would have an email with the corrections, or having him go through the full subscription flow again, which is a hassle for him. He didn't want to do it the first time, so let alone a second time. What we did is we came up with what we call revisions, right? So you have here the ability to send a revision request, right? So let's say he marked that he's not a US person, and you know for a fact that he is. You're going to put here, please verify and save. Once you put that, it reset the signature within the subscription. Basically, for a legal standpoint, once you request a revision, it resets the signatures. And now when I send the revision request, basically Ron would get into his email box a link specifically to that question within the subscription document. He will not have to go through the full subscription flow. What he will see is actually a nice interface that says an X on the question that he needs to revise and your comment on it. So this is how it will look like. Except for revisions, we also have what we call pre-fill. So for your VIP investors, recurring investors that you already have a previous subscription of them, and the questions are basically, very similar. What you can do is we have the ability to, let's say Elliot Zinger here, we want to fill in his information on his behalf. So we're going to click on a subscribing profile, and then a subscription SMART questionnaire will pop up in the back end. We have the ability to pre-fill all the information for him and just send it to him for signature purposes. And that basically kind of like closes the loop for your needing to correct errors for investors. And if you need to pre-fill on their behalf, this is the tool that will allow you to do that in large capacity. Now, of course, we have a lot more to see, the AI builder, how it connects everything to the CRM. But we're coming up on time, and I want to answer a little bit of your questions.
The first one here says, how do you handle situations where there are multiple signers on the investor side?
So that's a great question. We have the ability to create what we call additional signers. So basically, if we're talking about a family office or an RIA that wants to fill out the questionnaire on behalf of the investor, we will add additional signers. We can have up to 5. And one contact fills out everything, sends it to the other person for signature purposes.
Okay, great. Thank you. One more here from Linda is, can I personalize the subscription flow for each investor? For example, can I show only certain sections for specific people?
Yes. So we have what we call conditional logic. We have conditional logic either based on profile type, right? So an individual needs to answer a specific question, but an entity needs to answer a different set of questions. Or maybe it's depending on residency. If you have foreign investors, I assume they have to answer more questions. We can have conditional logic based on that and based on previous questions. So let's say I marked this yes, and now I have to answer 2 more questions. I will have the ability to do that and set it up.
Okay, awesome. And then I just have one more for you. David asks, can I track specific fields in this subscription to sync them to my CRM?
Yes, this is actually one of the new features that we created. It's basically the ability to what we call custom fields as merge fields in the subscription document. We have the ability to capture every single item in the subscription document, even one that's not native to our platform. Once the investor goes through that flow in the smart questionnaire and marks an answer, that answer would be recorded in the CRM, and you can track it and record it. So again, thank you everyone for joining today. I hope that this was very helpful for you and your business. So thank you very much for joining.
So many of you have probably maybe logged into an investor portal or have logged into a documents portal. At Agora, we focus on a few main pillars with our portal. One is going to be ease of use, right? It needs to be easy for the investors to see. It needs to provide them transparency, and it needs to be a communication hub between your firm or your fund and your LPs. So here in this example, I want to highlight a couple things that are unique about the investor portal. One, it is a white labeled experience. So we handle that white labeling process at Agora, and that's important because it's important that your investors have the look and feel of your brand in order to kind of promote that trust and transparency. So a lot of times when I talk to IR teams and managing partners, they're kind of wondering why they need to use a portal. Their investors are calling them. They've started with friends and family. They know how to reach them. So a couple of key kind of areas where an investor portal can kind of support your business, right? So investment transparency. And in Agora, that investment transparency is actually a native part of the investor portal that you're seeing here. So here, an investor like Sarah Bernstein, who invests with Rockview Capital, can actually see all of her commitments, her distributions, her equity balance, return on capital. And we've made it so it's a dynamic report, right? So keep in mind, with Agora's system for investor management, we have 2 parts to our system. So what you're seeing now is the LP view. So this is sort of the output of how we help you guys on the back end streamline your data, streamline your investor activity and transactions. So this particular output gives Sarah Bernstein a view that is dynamic, so she can sift and sort through her different fund investments. So you might say, yeah, but I already sent her these documents, or we already send an email notification. That's great. She can go back and have those email notifications. We can also support that process as well. But keep in mind, this is here for her to log in 24/7. And it's a place where she can always go to engage in her portfolio. I forgot to say one thing. If you guys do have questions, I did want to open it up. Anyone who has questions can feel free to type them in the chat box. And at the end, we'll leave a few minutes for them as well. All right. So from an investor portal perspective, what we're covering is going to be that investment transparency. We're giving you a consolidated communications portal. Let's say you're scaling your team and your operation. You're no longer the main contact and support. How do you extend that to other members of your team? Agora's investor portal can help do that. We have communication tools for them to send requests and safely share documents with you. You also have a place that is consolidated into the CRM. So all of your communication and task management in the CRM that I'll show you here shortly. Investment transparency, consolidated communications. And lastly, I'm going to mention that it's important to have an additional marketing channel for all of your fundraising efforts. So if you want to encourage reinvestments, for example, right? You want to encourage new investors to engage in the new opportunities, or perhaps you want to send out a case study, or maybe put out a feeler for everyone to engage in and say, see what people's appetite are for a new deal and try to collect soft commitments. Agora's investor portal does that all from within the same system for your existing investors. It is also an available resource for marketing new fundraising opportunities with prospective investors as well. So lastly, I just want to wrap up here on the investor portal so we have time to talk about CRM today and show you a couple of different layers of reporting that are super important for your investors. So for example, Sarah can see that she's invested in an income fund, Pacific Gateway, with a few different investments. It provides her a full overview of her financial details within this fund. And each investment page also gives her a transaction level summary for every distribution, including a report, a visual graph so she can see her distributions grow over time. It'll track her ownership percentage, and probably most importantly, all of her documents in one place. So you no longer have people kind of coming back to you each year wondering where their K1s are from 2 years ago or 3 years before. Agora's documents portal is designed to be configured to the type of documents that you send, so you can configure these document folders and easy to find and easy to distribute collections to your investors. Our transactions tab provides a financial overview, something we found important for a lot of investors with funds or syndicators, so that they can see all their financial transactions across their portfolio in one seamless place. So this investor portal is great, right? It gives you all these benefits, but I think it's important to talk about how the investor portal flows into your day-to-day and your back office, right? So I'm going to toggle my screen. You guys can actually see that same investor. Her name was Sarah Bernstein, but we're now seeing it from the back end view, right? So keep in mind, we've got two parts to our system at Agora. We have your operating system for you and your internal team. Then you have the investor portal that I just showed you. So within your operating system, you have what we like to call a CRM. And so I think everyone has probably heard about a CRM. Some people, I think, are confused about what a CRM actually is. In Agora, we use CRM as an investor relations CRM to help you manage your IR, your investors, and investment management. So think of it as a database of both prospective and existing investors that has embedded tools to help you manage your communications. So a few key pillars of Agora's CRM and why it helps IR teams. It's a native and fully integrated solution that was purpose-built for real estate investment firms. You've probably heard of some of the big players like Salesforce or HubSpot, a CRM that's not vertically integrated, that can be used by any type of organization, but requires hours of customization and pretty expensive consultants. We took the powerful tools that they also have and applied it to IR. So some of the key tools embedded in Agora's CRM that really help IR professionals. One is going to be a full relationship graph, right? Who is Sarah Bernstein? Who is she to our organization? I can understand the full picture of all of her connections, whether she invests individually or perhaps maybe she invests through an entity like an IRA, a trust, or through a wealth advisor. Maybe there's complex ownership structures that I need help navigating. This is exactly what the CRM relationship graph helps me do. If I go back to my activities under Sarah Bernstein, I have a robust activity timeline. I think this is probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from IR firms and IR teams is, how do I track the communication between my managing partners and the people that they're raising capital from? I'm responsible for sending out all of this information to them, but there tends to be a disconnect without Agora's CRM in tracking these processes. So a couple of key features that we're tracking: it's a native and bilateral email integration. What does that mean? If you send an email from your Gmail or your Outlook while you're fundraising to Sarah Bernstein, that email will be logged for full view and activity tracking within Agora's CRM. From there, I also have task management tools, right? Maybe I want to create a follow-up task because I can't remember what in 2 days, I'm not going to remember what she asked me. So I can create a new task within her page. And once that task is created, I'll get an automatic reminder both to my Agora system and to my email reminding me to follow up with Sarah Bernstein with her request. So a few other key features actually happen not just at the contact level. I think it's important to understand how we kind of build your org chart and the structure of your investors within Agora's CRM. So we do it through contact level information, so investor level information like Sarah Bernstein. But what if Sarah Bernstein is part of a larger organization, like a family office. Maybe she's one individual from a specific family office or a pension fund, or she's an investment advisor. How do you track her unique connections within that organization? In Agora, we allow you to connect those different contacts and investor contacts and group them under organization tabs. So whether you're at the investor level or organization level, you can actually create a full pipeline for pipeline management. The way I see IR teams using this today is they create these customized pipelines based on fundraising and tracking everyone who is interested in investing in a deal, or perhaps people who have a certain investment preference. One use case I've run across quite often is maybe you have a managing partner who likes to keep his hot list of investors. So here I have an example of how Agora allows you to sort and filter your data within the CRM. So keep in mind, we're your engine that's keeping your system running. You're tracking email communication, investment preferences, communication tools are all built within this system. So I can actually sort and filter with active data. So this helps inform your fundraising process and helps you create that proactive engagement with your investors. So for example, if Miles wants to proactively engage with his investors, he can come to his hot list, he can track things like priority status, the amount, how many investments they've made so far, and even just some personal notes on his conversations that he's had. Maybe he wants to act on this. So there's a few different actions Agora can help you take. One, you have to keep in mind that this is part of their fundraising motion. So maybe you want to quickly add these people to a new deal or opportunity and invite them to join that opportunity. You can do that from here. Maybe you want to send them an email, but instead of sending them all an individual email, you can do this through Agora using our email center. It'll pull all those contacts that are related to that investment over into Agora's email center. And here you can configure a marketing style email or a personal one-off email to each investor utilizing dynamic fields. This is how we help you guys save time and keep information at your fingertips for quick interactions. A couple of other key features I want to mention before I do open up for questions. One, you have data and analytics. And this is a big question I get from IR teams. How can I track who's opened my email, who's clicked into it? You know, I spent all this time writing these marketing emails. Are they really worth it? Within Agora system, under communication tools, you can always go to your sent emails and you can view who's received these notices, how often they've opened and clicked them, or a personal email that you've sent them. And you can actually track this follow-up and filter by the different stages that they might be in. So you can see everyone who has clicked, everyone who has opened or not opened, and ensure that everything is successfully delivered without having to do it on a one-off basis. I'm going to pause for a second. Julia, did we get any questions?
Hey, Lauren. Yeah, so we did get a few questions. I'll read out the ones I have, and in the meantime, if you have any questions, just write them in the chat. Okay, so we got a question from Austin, and his question was, how does the platform handle family offices? Can it support them?
Okay, great question. So yes, the answer is yes, but the real answer is how do we support them? So when you talk about family offices, you're talking about more of an organizational structure. So there's a few different ways that we help IR teams support their communication interactions with family offices. So from a CRM perspective, maybe you need to track different contacts, right? So maybe you have different contacts within that family office and you want to see, I'll open up one here. Let's see. You want to see the different profiles that are related to that family office, how many investments they have, what their commitments look like. And you can utilize this to also track notes and create those different pipeline stages, for example. Another way we support family offices is going to be in the investor portal. So I'm going to toggle my screen for a second. So here you're seeing Sarah Bernstein. In Agora, you can create a view for every individual of that family office and create a specific view for their investment. So let's say maybe you have a person at the family office that wants to log in and receive their documents only. So maybe Sarah Bernstein is associated with different profiles because she's associated with the Bernstein family office. She can see her portfolio for the trust, for LLCs, for IRA, or across her entire portfolio and all of her investment vehicles. Going back to the CRM, there's actually one key feature here that I think is really important for you guys to see when it comes to family offices. So the biggest use case I see is you close an investment with a family office. Usually right after that, they're going to send you a communication sheet. It's going to have a list of individuals. It's going to tell you the exact kind of communication that those individuals need to receive. Maybe Lauren gets all of the tax documents, but Julia needs to receive all the information on a quarterly basis about the fund. So the way we do support that is through our profile view. So it's not just contact investor level data, but it's actually an investment level CRM. So here I've opened up the family trust, and I can actually create automations around my communication to all the individuals associated with this family trust. So you can add new contacts. So let's say, again, in that example, Lauren, Julia, Chris, and Randy can all be different individuals associated with this trust, but then I have advanced relationship settings. So I don't have to keep a separate spreadsheet telling me how often I have to send the contribution emails to Randy or how often Chris needs to receive a specific document. I can actually create communication channels based off of custom communication channels based off of the type of communication I have with these investors. So lots of support for family offices. And just to kind of highlight, it's important that you have a system like Agora that can support a variety of investor types, from high net worth, ultra high net worth, family offices, and even those larger institutions as you scale your business.
Awesome, Lauren. We did get another question. Someone asked, is there a way to see exactly what my investors see?
Oh yeah, that's a great one. One of the biggest hurdles for people is that they always say, everyone says, well, my investors are not tech friendly, right? No investors are really probably the most tech forward, maybe a small percentage of them are. So you definitely want to know how you can control what they're seeing and how to also support them in using the portal. So first, I just want to say we have really, and I'll go back to the investor portal, we've really focused on ease of use here, right? It looks and feels like your Charles Schwab or your Morgan Stanley, but for Rockview Capital or for whatever your fund is. So one, we focus on ease of use for that. But let's say an investor does have a question. So you can actually open up that investor's name. And so let's use the Sarah Bernstein example. So let's say Sarah calls you, she has a question, and you're not exactly sure what her portal says. So you can actually just click right here and it'll open up an extra screen for you where you have the investor portal view. So if you're on the phone with Sarah, you can guide her to exactly where she needs to go within her investor portal. So great question.
Great. And we got a question actually from Sarah. She asked, what happens if I have contacts that are connected or related to my investors? So can we communicate with them?
Okay, well, this actually ties in with the family office example, right? So for example, I have an organization, and I could use any organization really. So let's use a pension fund. I have multiple individuals within that organization, and I want to control the different type of communications that each individual receives. Or another great example, I have an investment advisor, and they need to receive all documents on their client's behalf. So that kind of actually goes back to that same feature where you can actually open up the investment profile and create those automated relationship settings to control who has access to what data within their investor portal and the type of communications that you have back and forth with them. These are all really good questions so far.
Great, and we got another one. So Daniel asks, can I customize the investor portal to match my firm's terminology?
Yeah, so customization and configuration is important, right? I don't know how many people we have here today, but probably every single one of you have a slightly different value proposition for your investors and for your fund. And so maybe you're in a certain vertical where you need to customize, the type of metrics. Maybe you're, doing triple net leases and it's not transaction heavy, but you want people to see their ownership percentages and have access to this information. So yeah, the portal has to be customizable. Just to kind of go back to that view. Within Agora, we have a couple of standard customizations that are available to our clients. So one is, let's say you are a debt fund, right? Your terminology for a debt fund might be slightly different, and how you want to, report to your investors. Things like return of capital are a little bit less relevant. So we actually have debt terminology where it could say something like interest or principal and principal repaid. So you have customization there. And then you have a lot of customization in the branding of the portal itself. So the idea is when they're in this portal, it feels like your brand that they're already familiar with. So from there, you can also continue to customize each investment page and each offering room as well. So here we give you actually the format on the back end to customize each offering to its own kind of unique characteristics.
Awesome. So Lauren, I think those were the questions that we got.
I have one from Noah, and I'd be happy to talk about it since we have an extra few minutes here.
Of course.
And the question was a good one. So it's about tag functionality. And so I want to talk a little bit about tags are important, but also what's different between advanced filters, custom fields, and tags, and what that all means. And when you're talking about a CRM. So we do have the ability to bulk add tags. I would say what I've seen as a great practice with tags is capturing maybe quick updates and moments in time. So an example that I see a lot, maybe you send out a holiday present or an invitation to your investors, right? You want the ability to quickly maybe take your whole portfolio and add these kind of bulk tags and edits. In Agora, we take it a step further. So tags aren't just enough for us because tags can get a little bit messy to manage if you have multiple tags per contact. So if I open up an investor level view, here on the left side of Agora's system, we have what are called custom fields. So I give a few examples in my demo environment that are ones that I've seen our clients use. So things like lead source, right? Lead source is important if you're attending conferences, or maybe you want to track referrals. Investment preference is probably one of my favorite use of custom fields. Perhaps you guys are thinking about a new strategy and want to kind of test people's interest in multifamily, and you've traditionally done industrial. How are you tracking that? So a traditional model would be Excel. Excel is fine, but it's not integrated with how you communicate with your investors. So these custom fields allow you to kind of track any of the details at the contact level or the investor level that are really important for you to keep track of. In Agora, we don't limit the number of custom fields you have, and you have full configurability of what these options are. So you're just seeing examples now in my demo environment. And if you see here in the global settings, that's where we add new custom fields. And then at the contact level, you can see the different tag and list options as well. So how do you use these, right? So one of the questions you had, Noah, was like, can you review this functionality and show an example of how it's best utilized? So yes, a couple examples are through Agora's feature, which is called Manage Views. So these are examples of saved views that I've created. So for example, I'm tagging everyone with a custom field that I met at a particular conference. Why is that important for me? Maybe I want to track how many investments we actually yielded from that conference, right? How worthwhile was it for me to go there? So the way I use, once I create this view, I simply apply advanced filters using those tags. So here I can add the different filter rules, and I can pull in all of those custom fields that you just saw on the left sidebar. I can actually pull those in to this managed view. So for example, you could do it by geography. You could pull a custom field based off of those conference as the lead source. And these really are limitless. So a couple other examples that I like is they also match up with your portfolio. So for example, you don't have to tag everyone as they join new funds or new investments. They'll automatically be able to pull that data from anyone active in a specific deal, as an example. And then I apply the filters. That view is now created, and I can actually save that as one of my saved views. These saved views can be used for communication efforts, for that email tool. It connects to your email center, and it also connects as a pillar of your fundraising motion. So you can take these and actually act upon them to help streamline your fundraising efforts. So thank you everyone for joining. I hope this was helpful. We're trying to be informative and just share what we know here in the industries. And then lastly, you can always be sure to follow us on social media channels, so you can stay updated on future webinars and events. But thanks again. Hope you guys join us for the next one. Hope everyone has a great afternoon.